फास्टेस्ट क्रिकेट स्कोर अपडेट्स या सबसे डिटेल्ड स्टैट्स,
क्रिकेट के अंदर बाहर की खबरें
या हेल्दी डिबेट्स,
सबसे एक्यूरेट एनालिसिस
या फैंस का क्रेज, सबके लिए एक ही प्लेटफॉर्म, क्योंकि क्रिकेट मतलब क्रिकेट नेक्स्ट।
Hello everyone, you're watching Cricket Next, and it gives me immense pleasure to say that cricket is now an Olympic sport. It has officially been included in the Olympics starting with the 2028 Los Angeles edition, and the global governing body chose the occasion of the 141st session of the IOC. It all happened in the presence of India's IOC representative, Mrs. Neeta Ambani. First, let's have a look what she has to say about it.
And an ardent cricket fan, I'm delighted that IOC members have voted to include cricket as an Olympic sport in the LA Summer Olympics 2028. Cricket is one of the most loved sports globally and the second most watched. For 1.4 billion Indians, cricket is not just a sport, it's a religion. So I'm delighted that this historic resolution was passed at the 141st IOC session taking place right here in our country in Mumbai. The inclusion of cricket in the Olympics will create deeper engagement for the Olympic movement in newer geographies, and at the same time provide a boost to cricket's growing international popularity. I thank and congratulate the IOC and the LA Organizing Committee for their support to this landmark decision. It's truly a day of great joy and jubilation.
It's indeed a big decision and a great inclusion for the sport. Let's understand what it means to India, what it means to the sport from Network 18 Group Sports Editor K. Srinivas Rao, and with him I have Sahil Malhotra as well. Srini, it's a big day for all of us, and cricket has been included in Olympics. Everybody was waiting for this decision. Now, help us understand how big is this inclusion for the sport, and especially for a country like India, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Mumbai for inaugurating the session himself.
Yes. So the Prime Minister, coming over to inaugurate the session on Saturday, on a day when, by the way, when India was playing Pakistan, so cricket was again, making news in another city. However, he chose to be here and talk about the larger aspect of sport and where India is headed, from a global perspective, and I think that should underline how important the session and the narrative around it has been, or rather is on right now. That said, I've been reading headlines today ever since the news came out that cricket officially is now part of the Olympics, and everybody seems to be very excited. Oh yes, every second report that I've been seeing, or every headline or every tweet is about jubilation. Where kind of people are celebrating the fact that cricket is now. But listen, the session that is happening in Mumbai, the 141st IOC session, is not just about cricket. Cricket is one of the 5 sports that made it to the Olympics. There's lacrosse, there's softball, there's squash. There are other sports. Cricket has made over breakdancing for that matter. So what is important here is to understand the larger narrative, and in that, why cricket is important. Cricket is important because India and cricket are a very unique combination.
Yes.
Think of a sport anywhere in this world, which any country plays, where one country and eyeballs generated from one country alone dominate a game in any sport in such a heavy manner like cricket and India do. You're talking about the world's second most addressable sport on television. And as we go on into the show, I will explain to you what makes cricket the second most addressable sport on television. But that said, we're talking about the second most addressable sport on television, which makes so much noise because of one country and the eyeballs that it generates, right? So it's a huge thing from an India standpoint. So, while we talk about India's Olympic narrative, it just so happens that cricket happens to be the biggest catalyst. A few years ago, the way we were doing in badminton, for example, when Saina Nehwal and PV Sindhu were going at it, and we always were in the in the hunt for medals, or the way we went about with our wrestling campaign, in the past, we were always there, close to grabbing medals. Now we have Neeraj Chopra here, kind of who's leading the path, helped us India win India's first athletic gold. At these are all narratives that are helping build India's Olympic movement. It's a futuristic movement. It's about where we want to head as a nation, right? From that perspective, cricket being included in the scheme of things, what it allows us to do as a cricketing superpower, it arms us with a very big catalyst. Here is a sport that we are the best at, right? And we are globally governing and running it. So from that perspective, it allows us a huge, kind of shot in the arm. But that said, I think the larger picture here is India's Olympic movement, where we have traveled over the last 15 years as a nation, wanting to get better at every sport that we play. And we have time and again, in the recent Asian Games, we crossed 100 medals, and the day we crossed the 100 medals, I could see, everywhere there was jubilation. And I've been covering sport for a very long time. I've been
Yeah.
covering sport for a very long time, and long enough to understand where this change has happened. There was a time that we would either celebrate cricket or crib about hockey, and nothing else in between. Once in a while, a Leander Pace would win a medal. Once in a while, an Abhinav Bindra would win a medal. Those were personal accomplishments. We would like kind of be happy at what has been achieved, and then move on, right? But now it's like a sort of a movement, right? Now it's like
Yeah.
kindly like has been seeping in over the years, where this began, where this stands to be at this point in time, and where it is headed. This IOC session is an underlining of that narrative.
Absolutely. And Sahil, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi mentioned that it's a dream for our country to host 2036 Olympics and also the Youth Olympics in 2029. Now, given that big dream, do you find this inclusion as the foundation stone for that big achievement that India is aspiring for?
No, absolutely, Suramya. Ashwini rightly mentioned about the medals haul which we had at the Asian Games. Let's just not go too far back. Let's just remember 2010, the Commonwealth, when we hosted it in Delhi. What happened there? How there was a shift in the sporting mentality of the nation. How from one sport nation we have evolved into a nation where across sports, not just one sport, cricket, hockey, boxing, shooting, we could just have four sports on our fingers. And now just look at how we have performed at the Asian Games, how sporting infrastructure in the last 10, 12 years has been completely changed. Now you go across, you will find so many beautiful astroturf hockey fields, you'll have shooting ranges, you'll have top-notch javelin facilities. That was something which was, it was a dream, if you would say, a decade back. But now that mentality is shifting. The right amount of people are coming in, the corporates are pumping in a lot of money, people with the right intent for India to grow as a sporting nation, that direction is being given. And with cricket now becoming a part of the LA Olympics, I think that is a shot in the arm for the entire for the complete sporting movement of India as growing as a sporting superpower. That for that to take place, cricket was a very important piece in that puzzle. And now that that piece has fallen into place, I think we can only dream and aspire for bigger things in future. And of that, hosting Youth Olympics and Olympics, which Prime Minister Narendra Modi did announce a couple of days back, that is going to be a dream which we do have all the ingredients to turn into a reality. No doubt about that. Because as I said, the mentality of the nation has changed. Right now, we are not just restricted to watching cricket or, as Ashwini said, criticizing hockey. We are growing as a sporting superpower across the field, track and field. Growing up, for me, it was a disappointment seeing no Indian just cross the heat barrier in the games. But now we are competing. We are not just competing, we are returning with medals. Just look at the Justin Shankar. He's winning a medal in decathlon. When was the last time we actually dreamt of a Indian competing in decathlon? And there's is our boy youngster, studied in Delhi, who's standing on the podium. So these are big accomplishments, and Neeraj Chopra is carrying that javelin in his hand, and we are going to do bigger and better things in future, hopefully with cricket as the biggest catalyst.
Yes, rightly so. Because if we see these recent Asian Games, it reminds me of Deepika Palikal and Harinder Sandhu, who won gold medal in squash, and now squash has been included in these Olympics. They were rooting for squash to be included in Olympics for quite a long time, and this has been made real because Srini was talking about. It's not only about cricket; it's all about the five sports that have been given a nod to be there in 2028 Olympics. But Srini, in the video that we saw earlier, Neeta Ambani rightly mentioned that cricket in India is not only a sport, it's a religion, and rightly so. I want to know from you her role in this whole decision, in this whole inclusion, because we know that she's always been very closely associated with multiple sports, and especially her love for cricket is quite explicit in all the tournaments that we see here in India. So, how her role was significant in this whole decision?
Yeah. So listen, I mean, long ago, I mean, almost 16, 17 years ago, when she was, when she was opening up to the idea of doing something, involving herself with Indian sport, and looking at certain big pictures. There was a lot. There was a lot. I mean, we didn't know anything at that point. I mean, as outsiders documenting this narrative, or rather trying to document this narrative, we hardly had any idea of the scope and the magnanimity with which she was planning things. I mean, when I look back in hindsight, everything in hindsight is like kind of an oh my god moment, like kind of, because when it began at a very small level. I remember one of my earliest interactions with her was in towards the end of 2009, and she was just about kind of Mumbai Indians was still being set up, and unfortunately the second edition had to be shifted out of the country, so it was all still very new, and that was a time when she was beginning to like kind of understand the circuit and how things work. And one thing was very clear: no matter how much she was new to the thing or like what she was trying to understand, her eyes were set on one thing. She said, as much as this is about floodlights, this is about streetlights. That was very clear. uh, you know so what she also meant, in saying that is that as much as you got to nurture and take care of sport at the highest level, always keep looking at the big picture. You have to go down deep, go to the grassroots, go to the last mile, and see where it's all beginning. So the end to end connect was extremely important for any sport to really set in, find its feet, and prosper. Now look at the various things that have happened. There are a lot of things. I wrote a piece today where I said that there are a lot of things that Mrs. Ambani or Reliance has done in sports which have grabbed headlines. For example, Mumbai Indians, five-time title winners, big headline. Mumbai Indians is a big brand in franchise cricket all over the world. They own a franchise today. Wherever a league happens, you can't really be thinking of going ahead without having Mumbai Indians on board. It's that big a property. It began from scratch, but
Yeah.
the kind of vision that was there in place in terms of how you're going to go about it, in terms of what's your value addition going to be, not just to the IPL, not just to the league, but to the game itself. What kind of a message are you going to leave out there for all your stakeholders, your sponsors, your cricketers, your spectators, your fans, as an ecosystem. So when today Mumbai Indians walks out as one of the most successful teams, when the IPL begins, it's not just because they practiced yesterday, put a team together today, and they're like going out to win. It's like Bombay winning 40 plus Ranji Trophy title. It's seeped in culture. That's what Mumbai
Yes.
Indians Reliance was doing from a franchise perspective. It was seeping in, putting in place a culture that would go out and speak for itself in the future. Now, this is just Mumbai Indians. Why I'm saying this is because it all started. The journey as we from outside know it started with Mumbai Indians, right? And then it gradually began, like, kind of. So I remember it was 2010, perhaps, that Reliance and the International Management Group in UK came together. They formed a joint venture, which was at that time called the Reliance IMG, which again was going to get deeply involved with sport in India. And as kind of time, the years passed, Reliance got a better understanding of the sporting ecosystem, various sporting ecosystems. It tried to understand things from various perspectives, administration, the game itself, setting up coaching structures, high performance centers. I'll come to much of that later. Setting up talent scouting, sponsoring, sports
Yeah.
management. They were beginning to look at it as a sports ecosystem. So a lot of small things. I'll give you an example. Reliance Foundation Youth Sports, grassroots. You just go and look at the scale at which they organize sports at the grassroots. Youth champs, young champs, sorry, the Reliance ISL young champs, footballers from all over the country are picked, given a scholarship, brought over, their education is taken care of, and they're like they're given good education, one of the top, in one of the best schools in Mumbai. They stay here, they're like, stay, food, accommodation, everything is taken care of. All they got to do is study and play football. Hundreds of kids. So these are things that don't really make headlines. For example, when the IPL
Yeah.
happens, the work that happens behind the scenes. We only know Mumbai Indians as a franchise which gets a 80 crore or a 90 crore plus sponsor on the jersey of the chest, like chest jersey, like. But otherwise we really don't see much of the things that happen behind the scenes. So all of the why I'm saying this is because I can give you another example. The center of excellence in Kalinga, Bhubaneswar, Kalinga Stadium, is where Neeraj Chopra was practicing before he actually won his gold medal. I have been to the Center of Excellence in Kalinga, in Bhubaneswar, at the Kalinga Stadium, and the coaches there. I mean, the high performance coach there is from UK, and he's kind of been associated with Olympic sports at the highest level for Great Britain before he moved here, right? And the work that was being done at a very back end level was very deep and very exciting, actually. And I was pleasantly surprised for the couple of days that I spent there. I mean, we understand what, because we identify so closely with hockey, Indian hockey, because, for 75 years we've been tracking it. So Tatas do something with Indian hockey. Obviously, it makes headlines for the better. Similarly, there are others who've been doing different stuff. I can tell you, Mr. Abhinav Bindra runs a state-of-the-art biomechanics center in Bhubaneswar. It's state-of-the-art. When I say state-of-the-art, it's something else. Like, Gagan Narang runs a shooting range. Anil Kumble and his company Tenwick runs a weightlifting high-performance center in Bhubaneswar. So these are all people who have been contributing at the grassroots for a very, very long time. And what we are witnessing now as a movement, from an India narrative, is just a culmination. It's just all these good things coming together and leading us to a direction with a larger picture to look at.
Yeah, and Srini, you have rightly mentioned there, it takes a lot of effort to work on the grassroots levels, though those kind of efforts don't make the headlines, but that's the area where real work goes on. Now, I have with me Chetan Narula, and we'll continue this discussion with him as well. Welcome to the live session, Chetan. Chetan, we were talking about, how massive this decision is and this inclusion is of the game of cricket in Olympics. A while ago, we were looking here that, how this sport in both men's and women's category will be there in 2028 Olympics. How do you see from the perspective of aspiring cricketers here in India who will be looking forward to now participate in this sport and the four other sports more eagerly and be a part of all other kinds of sports so that they can reach to the levels of Olympics?
No, I think first of all, it's a huge moment for cricket because, as we know, it's been more than 100 years since cricket has been on the Olympic platform, and there's always been a conversation, whether it should be, it shouldn't be, can it be part of the charter, whether it can't be, what format. I think the advent of T20 cricket was when it seriously began to be considered in the Olympic, that it can be part of the Olympic charter. There was a time, I think, एक बार Asian Games में Indian team ने participate किया था. That was what, 98, 99, or was it Commonwealth Games? I'm not sure. I think it was Commonwealth Games. And of late, there has been women competition in Commonwealth Games. अभी Asian Games में we have seen cricket being included as well. So the T20 format is where I think the seriousness of it began. And it obviously makes sense from a T20 perspective. I mean, you can have an 8-team tournament in 15 days of competition. That's just possible. So मोस्ट ऑफ ऑल आई थिंक जब भी हम वर्ल्ड कप्स की बात करते हैं, चाहे वो T20 वर्ल्ड कप हो या ODI वर्ल्ड कप हो, for example, right now the ODI World Cup is going on, and that's a 10-team competition. So that's 10 countries in the world, and there are, yes, there are technically 118 countries who are cricket participants on a global scale, but उस level पे नहीं. So we don't see high quality cricket competition on that global stage. This World Cup while this is a World Cup, it's not really a World Cup when you talk about a football World Cup or when you talk about Olympics per se. India Pakistan as an individual game has a lot of eyeballs, but a cricket World Cup has fewer in comparison. You look at Olympics, you look at the FIFA World Cup, you look at the Football Champions League. You look at Formula One races. They have a bigger reach, a global reach in those terms. So I think cricket being played on the international platform like the Olympics will give it the eyeballs. And I'm not just talking about an India-Pakistan game. I'm talking about overall exposure. From that perspective, I think that will be very important. और सबसे पहले मेरे दिमाग में यही चीज आई थी कि Olympics is not ready for the Team India fans bandwagon. I mean, they will not know what has hit them. I don't think Olympics has ever seen the madness that is Team India's fans when a world event is going on. Imagine there's an India-Pakistan at the LA 2028. Los Angeles will not know what has hit it, when the India and Pakistan fans descend there. So I think that is something extraordinary that is going to happen. Srini wants to say something.
Yeah.
No, just one small thing here. It's not like cricket. It's not like cricket hasn't been generating eyeballs. It has generated eyeballs like no other sport. After football, it is the second most watched sport on television. If you look at the global properties, you start with the Tour de France, you start with the then it's like FIFA World Cup, Cricket World Cup, Summer Olympics, Winter Olympics, in that order. So purely from the eyeballs that it has generated. Look at the numbers at this Cricket World Cup on Hotstar, or the 2019
You're
numbers.
talking just about digital. You finish, then I'll see. You finish.
I'm saying that overall, from a television standpoint, purely from a television standpoint, few sports have generated eyeballs the way cricket has. Okay, what has been missing is, and I think it's largely been driven by a Western narrative. It's largely been an idea driven by the Western narrative from an Olympic standpoint, where they have not really taken note of a landslide change in India from a market's perspective in terms of how cricket has progressed post turn of the century. I'll give an example. Pre turn of the century, we looked at movies, and Indian movies was talked about in the West. We talked about how Shah Rukh Khan, everybody in America began to associate with the Shah Rukh Khan after Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, or in UK or Europe, for that matter. Or everybody could understand who Amitabh Bachchan was in West Asia. If you look at, I've heard stories after stories of how people in Iraq during the Gulf War, if they were if they like kind of journalists who went to India from India when they went to Kawa, they were talked about like, oh, India, Amisha Bakhan, that's how they were referred to. For India was identified as a country of, again, I don't want to go in that space, but the country of snake charmers, country of elephants, country of Amitabh Bachchan's country, then later about Shah Rukh Khan's. There was more to that. And we are still very young. Let's start counting about what we've been doing from not before 83 to 1992 to post turn of the century to 2007, the IPL coming up, to suddenly the next 15 years we kind of raising our hands to various other prospects. It's been a very short journey so far. Think of a country which in the last 35 years has managed to raise its hand so high and punch above its weight. I can't think of any other country. We are talking about competing or probably standing in line with nations which have, we talk about, we talk about, which 2014, 10 years ago, the country that hosted an Olympics is a country that ruled us for 200 plus years. So
Yeah.
today, 10 years later, we think of aspiring and doing something similar in 10 years from now. And I think that's a jump, a multifold jump. So this is a lot. This is not just about cricket. This is not just about what is happening today. This is about our journey, which has been over the last 30, 35, 40 years, what we aspire to do going forward. The fact that we have a vision here, the fact that we understand where we want to take this, the fact that we are trying to, dream. I think that's the bigger story here. The bigger story here is that we think and we dare to dream, and we know that there is a set of accomplishments that we can achieve. It's no small joke. It's no small joke if India, as a nation which is just 75 or 76 years old, and kind of wants to actually kind of host the biggest sporting spectacle on earth. I think that's a statement more than anything. Why? That's why I said cricket has to be seen in the larger perspective. But see, I give an example. FIFA, despite we being the second, most consumed sport on television after FIFA, after football, we're still miles away from how FIFA runs, governs, and manages football globally. The number of countries that participate, the scale at which FIFA operates, it's like a country. FIFA in itself is like a country, right? So we've got so many lessons there. We've got so much to learn. But however, when I look at cricket, I am saying, tell me another country which is one sport manned country like India is to cricket. I mean, even Brazil doesn't come that close to soccer. Europe, no European country comes close to football. The way India goes to cricket, because it brings eyeballs, it brings makes the economy function, it brings in money, it brings in fans, it brings in all the madness required for an ecosystem to function. And there, I'm saying that this, what is it? It is nothing but a booster for India as it aims bigger, as it dreams bigger. By itself, Suramya, cricket will
Yes.
continue to play. By itself, nothing will happen to cricket. The IPL will still function on its own. The IPL or cricket doesn't need Olympics. It doesn't need Olympics.
Yes.
Why do you think FIFA allows only under 23 players to the Olympics? It doesn't allow senior players. Why? It allows, like, they set strict rules there. The reason being, they don't wish to devalue their product. They're very particular in terms of, what they have is FIFA's exclusive property. And that's why they insist that at the Olympics, only the under 23 footballers are going to perform. So cricket, I believe, what is coming out right now and what people are trying to suggest is that senior cricketers are going to be part. I believe, I think the whole spectacle is built on Virat Kohli's poster. I think the IOC's whole big ICC and the IOC's whole big picture is about, let's get Virat Kohli to Los Angeles. I
And
think
see, here's
there
the
you go.
comment from Harsh Purohit. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's asking the same.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, you have come here looking at Virat Kohli, looking at India. If India was not catering to the sport and not catering to the game of cricket, Chetan talked about England and France and 100 years ago what the scene was. Today, if India, I read a headline in Times UK. I think this was a couple of months ago. I think Sahil only had forwarded the story to me, or I don't know who had. And somebody was quoted, some IOC official, ex-IOC official was quoted in the Times UK saying that, IOC is looking at a 160 million plus broadcast revenue. Am I right, Sahil? 160 million odd broadcast revenue, by including cricket. I don't believe in that number. I don't believe in that number. But let's assume, if not 160, even if it's 100 million. If India is not watching it, if India is not playing it, forget it. There is no 100 million on the table. There is no 1 million on the table. You want any bit of it, bring India to the party. The ICC, the IOC, they all understand it very well. So that's why I'm saying, for India, cricket as a product is its own. They should do what they want to do, in terms of taking the game forward, build on it, build an NFL of its own, build an NBA of its own, build your own future. You do that while again you aspire, things from an Olympic perspective, but use the narrative to look at the larger picture, which is India going on to join the Olympic movement in a bigger way, taking things to the next level from an Olympic standpoint, where you grow in stature and use sport as a from a larger perspective of a soft power than just depending on cricket alone. So today, for example, it's a common narrative. I think, Suramya, at your house, Sahil's house, or Chetan's house, or my place, there are so many of our friends and relatives, or people who come and question us, say, "अरे भाई, इस देश में क्रिकेट के अलावा कोई sport है क्या? Is there any other sport that this country plays other or watches other than cricket?" Well, this is a starting point. We are using cricket once again to push the narrative for other sports forward. We want us to become superpowers at athletics. We want us to go and do well once again in hockey. We want us to do and once again, do well in athletics, which again, Neeraj Chopra is again a guiding light for us, right? So we want cricket to be the catalyst in helping us drive forward a bigger dream. In the process, if we have to use the stardom of Virat Kohli to push more Neeraj Chopras, in the future, then so be it. But I think that's where we need to go.
Yes, and Srini, if we look at our history in the last a lot many years, I believe there wasn't any point where the global platforms were talking about India and cricket being synonymous. Today, when you talk about cricket, you automatically talk about India. You talk about the Indian markets. You talk about the Indian talent, and wherever cricket tournament happens, it's always with the Indian athletes' participation and India being at the center stage. Now, Sahil, you have been in close touch with few of the ICC officials. I want to know what was their reaction to this big decision. I believe they must be very very happy with this inclusion, and especially how India have performed their role in this big decision.
Absolutely. From what I could gather was, as long as it was being the idea was being conceived of IOC kind of pushing this inclusion of cricket forward, it wouldn't have been possible had the BCCI not jumped on the bandwagon. Let's be very clear about it. Cricket can't really exist without the BCCI right now. It is actually
Yeah.
the global superpower right now. You just can't afford to isolate the two. Cricket and BCCI need to be said in the same breath. That's how the sport is kind of advancing right now, and that's the eyeballs which are being generated and the money which is being put on the table. More than 90% of ICC revenue is being pushed via the broadcast deals which are happening by a Indian broadcaster. You just can't afford to ignore India when you make such advancements of including cricket as a global sport and pushing it in Olympics. And having said that, the moment BCCI came on board, the moment ECB kind of gave their nod of including cricket in Olympics, I think it became a movement in its own. And BCCI Secretary Jay Shah was also part of the Olympic working group of the ICC. So a lot of synergy was felt there, and little bit which I could gather was that it is likely going to be a 6-team event right now, both men and women. They are looking at concluding it within a week, so they don't want to compromise much of their FTP, which is yet to be announced. But then, yes, they don't want to compromise most of their FTP, because just look at the lineup of 2028. It is completely mouth-watering and full of T20. You'll have a 2-month IPL, you'll have a T20 World Cup, and now you'll have cricket in the Olympics. So you can see the direction in which the sport is being headed right now. We'll have T20 dominating, the 2028 calendar, and Olympics will be part of that movement. So ICC is pretty excited, and that excitement would have just been restricted to emails and some documents had BCCI not jumped on that bandwagon, which was kind of pushed forward by IOC under the guidance of Mrs. Neeta Ambani. So everything came together, and 1+1 became 2. And that is how this movement actually came together. And with Prime Minister Narendra Modi attending the opening of the session in Mumbai, I think it speaks volumes about the vision which this country have to become a global superpower when it comes to sports. They just don't want to be associated with cricket anymore. That is what the narrative which they are putting forward, and that is heartening to see, because we just don't want a Virat Kohli. We also want a Neeraj Chopra. We also want a Tejaswin Shankar, and that is where this nation should be headed to. And there is no dearth of talent in this country. And in the last 10 years, ever since we hosted the 2010 Commonwealth Games to 2023 Asian Games, look at the difference, in how the success which we are tasting across sports now. So that is something which we should kind of look at positively. And cricket in Olympics is just a start. Let's not get carried away. I always say that with a line of caution. Let's not get carried away, because cricket in Olympics doesn't mean cricket will become the global sport overnight, which everyone aspires it to be. It just can't become the
Yeah.
household sport in America just by hosting a T20 World Cup there. It's a step in a long process. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It will take time. The culture, to have that cricketing culture which we have seen in Asian countries, which we have seen in Australia, England, South Africa, it will take time for that to reach every American household. But yes, this is a start, a good start, a positive start, and it's time to celebrate this start. Nothing less, nothing more.
Yes. Yes, it calls for a celebration. It's a big, big achievement for cricket as a sport, and also a big moment for all the Indians and all cricket fans in general. Sahil, you were talking about, how ECB reacted to it. I heard how Australian cricket was quite happy with this decision, because they know that after 2028 Olympics, the Olympics will be at their place, and the way cricket is played in Australia, it'll be a big moment for all the cricket fans out there. So it's not only for a few countries, it's for all the countries, and it will set a tone for all the games on a global platform. Chetan, Srini talked about how cricket has always been a great tool of soft power, and in quite a few of our live sessions we have talked about the soft power relations. They are very helpful in strengthening the global relations, and especially when we talk about Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he has talked about how these soft power relations are very, very important. Now, cricket being here as a soft power, do you think that it's just the beginning of good global relations with other countries, given that it will be on the platform of Olympics now?
I mean, I'm not sure what the I'm not sure about this question, soft power. But I don't know. What do you mean?
No.
See, yeah, Srini, yes.
What she meant was that you know cricket is going to help push India's sporting spectacle to the next level. So in that, how do you think is it going to augur? Like people today look at India from a cricket centric standpoint. So today, when cricket joins a larger narrative where India's sporting story is concerned from a futuristic perspective, do you think this is going to add to India's kind of relations abroad?
Also, Chetan, in today's day and age, soft power relations have become more important, when it comes to strengthening your global stature and also your global power relations. So, how cricket will play a role now, given that now it has been included in Olympics?
Well, look, it's obviously going to give a huge platform in terms of what India can contribute on a global stage in terms of cricket. I mean, you have Brisbane, uske baad, and 2036 and 2040. From what I understand, India might be in contention for one of those Olympics. They're certainly talking about it. Whether it happens or not remains to be seen, or maybe someplace in yeah, there it is, someplace in Asia to host 2036 or 2040. So it might bring in a bit of a continuity to cricket being in the Olympics 2032. I mean, there's no reason why Olympics shouldn't be part of Brisbane 2032. Having said that, yeah, I mean, from a soft power status, yes, in that sense, yes, because cricket in the Olympics will garner media interest, will garner broadcast interest. There's no doubt about it. And obviously, there'll be a larger presence. It just depends. Is the Olympics charter going to follow the football rule where only under 23 will be allowed? So we don't know. I mean, at least
Sorry,
I
I,
don't.
I forgot
Yeah,
I
up to
forgot adding that. So that is not going to be the case. So there's not going to be the under 23 rule, and ICC kind of has made up its mind. It's still kind of early days, but the mind is already made on that front. They want
Listen,
to ensure that the
one
top
second.
players participate. Yeah, Srini.
We have 5 years to go between
Yeah.
now and 2028.
Yeah.
So it's a long time. Right now, what's important is the fact that cricket is in.
Yeah.
How many teams? 6 teams. So somebody said 6 teams. I think ICC said 6 teams. Who knows in 3 years whether Pakistan is going to be playing T20 cricket anymore or not? I'm just thinking aloud. Or, some other country is going to be playing T20 cricket anymore or not. How exactly can you sit today and define what is going to happen 5 years from now? I personally think that this is going to be work in progress. Which are the teams? Format, for example, I'm not very sure if T20 can 100% say as a format today. T20 is being pushed as a format, but there is a huge chance that tomorrow they might say that T20 or T10 is a far less time consuming process. T20 at the end of the day is still taking 4 hours. So from a broadcast standpoint, from a people tend to sit here and think, nahi, nahi, kya farak padta hai? 4 hours is that's not such a big deal. It's selling. But you're talking about a sport that is going to be played in America, 12 hours, 11 and a half hours behind our time. Can it fit the subcontinent prime time? If they wish to see it in this manner, maybe kind of push it from a T10. And then American sport from that perspective is always a spectacle, so they want to like kind of get some other engagement from a T10 standpoint. You never know how and at what pace is the sport going to change over the next 3 to 5 years. So keeping all of that in mind, and what BCCI is thinking for that matter, BCCI could very well
So
say that I'm going to send an India A team, not the India team, like what it does at the Asian Games. Who knows?
yeah. So, Srini, you mean that, there's a long way to go to address all the other questions, be it revenue models, be it the format, be it the countries participating in it, and also the players. Because right now, the questions that I can see in the chat box, all the questions are related to who will play. I mean, will the cricketers like Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, will they be playing in Olympics, or will it be the other team that we saw in Asian Games? But do you think that it's a long, long way to go for addressing all these questions?
Asking me?
Sure. Yes. Yes. Really.
Yeah, it's a long way to go. It's a long way to go because I'm thinking, a lot. See, from a broadcast, see, till right now there is no broadcaster in place. So a lot of things are going to happen. The broadcaster is going to pitch. The broadcaster is not made a pitch yet for for cricket to be shown in the Olympics. Every sport that gets included in the Olympics has works on a different business model. With regards to the territory that it is catering to. So if it is badminton that we are talking about, and then India versus China, and if the IOC sees an India versus China rivalry building up and could lead to some particular level at the Olympics, they will focus it from a prime time perspective. From all of that, keeping in mind, they will make sure that it caters to the India and China markets. In terms of
Yeah.
broadcast. Likewise for football, they'll make sure it either caters to South America or it caters to Europe. So different sports continue to engage with different business models, even at the Olympics. So the IOC looks at each sector separately. So for cricket, I can tell you, IOC has already initiated broadcast talks, and they are yet to kind of come closer to any deal, any understanding. But what they are doing right now is at least trying to understand how things work from an India subcontinent standpoint, where sale of media rights is concerned. So this is not going to happen overnight. So who knows?
Hmm.
Tomorrow the IOC may come and say, with negotiation after negotiation with broadcaster, say, listen, you know, T20 is pretty time consuming. We are looking at the newer markets any which way. We are looking to build a futuristic property. Can we look at T10? I'm just thinking, why exactly people are like, people are not understanding that those who are sitting here to run sport and make it successful from a television standpoint and all, they are not, they are not looking at things from a very rigid, this thing. They are open to ideas. They're open to ideas. They
Hmm.
want to see, how is cricket evolved? Like, from 60 to 50 overs to 20 overs. Don't be surprised if it goes to T10 in the future. People might look down upon it now. People look down upon the T20 format. What I'm trying to say is we are nobody to be snobby about, to, kind of have that, kind of this won't work. This is kachra. This is not cricket. This is pajama cricket. We're nobody to say that. If
Yeah.
somebody is paying to watch a sport, any sport, respect it. Respect it.
Yes.
If T20 is selling, it is selling because there are people who want to pay for it and watch it. It's not just selling because somebody is too excited about the format. And so likewise, I'm saying the future can be anything depending on what the organizers, federations, ये क्या है हिंदी में बोल देता हूँ कि like what एक रिजिड एक ऐसा कोई ये नहीं है कि T20 ही चलना चाहिए, ओडीआई ही चलना चाहिए या टेस्ट ही चलना चाहिए, जिसको जो पसंद है। इनकी इनकी समझने के लिए मैं एक एग्जांपल दे देता हूँ। स्पोर्ट जो है वो एक हमारी जो इंडिया की थाली होती है ना, थाली की तरह होती है। उसमें चावल की भी जगह होती है, रोटी की भी जगह होती है, सब्जी दाल, फिर उसमें पापड़ की भी जगह होती है, दही की भी जगह होती है, कर्ड पिकल, सबके लिए जगह है, सबके लिए जगह है। तो आप कभी ये मत समझना कि ये चलेगा ये, लेकिन ये नहीं चलेगा। कुछ भी चल सकता है। हमको वेट करना है और ये देखना है कि जो ऑर्गेनाइजर्स है वो क्या सोचते हैं। वो क्या ये सोचते हैं कि भाई T20 जो है वो 4 घंटे चलता है तो बहुत ज्यादा टाइम कंज्यूम करेगा, शायद हमारे एडवर्टाइजर्स ना माने उसके लिए, शायद हम प्राइम टाइम पे ना इसको बेच पाए, इसको T10 कर देते हैं, 2 घंटे का फर्म स्लॉट बेचेंगे, हो सकता है वो सोच लें। एक और ओलंपिक में नया नया जा रहा है क्रिकेट, तो वो बोलेंगे चलिए एक नया प्रॉपर्टी डिवाइस करते हैं, कुछ भी हो सकता है। सो नेवर से नेवर, wait and watch.
Never say never. Yes, that's the phrase out there. Sahil, lastly, a lot has been said, and here also we were talking about, how Neeta Ambani's role has been very crucial in this decision. Now, last year, she was the one who made ICC amend the IOA law book, and we also got PT Usha into the picture. How do you see her role, and in future as well? Because right now it seems that her role was very, very crucial, and that's where the whole discussion around cricket being included in the Olympics started. So, how do you see her role in future as well?
Last year I was speaking to a couple of people at MI, and to understand how Mrs. Ambani works, it's very critical to understand how they operate at the MI level. So if you look at Mumbai Indians as a franchise, it's not just a franchise who's just playing 2 months of cricket. They're looking after the players for 12 long months, around the year, 365 days a year. किसी को इंजरी है, MI takes care. किसी को इंजरी है, just take the classic case of Mohsin Khan. He made the waves with Lucknow Super Giants, but MI was carrying him all along when he was nursing an injury. During the off season, they would send their players for a couple of months in the UK, go player there. These are not just players, these are the players who they want to probably bid in the future but are not sure about, so they keep them within their setup. So that is how they operate, and that is the level at which they operate, and that kind of stems right from the top, the mentality which the top leadership has, and that is completely triggering down to the entire MI setup, and that is something which is being carried forward to the IOC now. And that is what we are going to see in future when we aspire for India to just jump on that sporting superpower bandwagon. And this is going to be very important, and that mindset will definitely be carried forward there. There's no question about that, because the mindset of carrying your players together, carrying your team together, it's not a professional sport for them. It is not something, a couple of people I was talking to, they told me, Reliance and Mrs. Ambani are not here to make money out of Mumbai Indians or say IOC. Yeah. It is something which they are doing for the greater good, and that greater good is to turn India into a bigger sporting power. ISL is not that big a profit-making venture, but it's doing something for football at the grassroots level. So that is helping the football movement grow. MI is helping the cricket movement grow. So, all these things are working in tandem, and it is just not a profit-making venture which they're looking at. It is something bigger than that, and it is completely in sync with what we are seeing unfold in the last couple of days, which has been work in progress in the last couple of years at least. So bigger things are in mind, bigger movements are in mind, and for India to kind of become the global superpower in sports, which we want them to be, I think a lot of work is required at the grassroots level, and that is primarily what is being done right now.
Absolutely. And Neeta Ambani has done a lot in this front, and she's been a pioneer when it comes to taking all those aspirations to the bigger platform. Now, Chetan, we're talking about how big this decision and inclusion is. Srini and Sahil have very well talked about, it's all about the bigger picture. It's all about the bigger dream that India are looking forward to. That's 2036 Olympics. Now, we are at a stage where we are hosting the World Cup. We are at a time where we are seeing how different countries have come to India and they are participating in such a big tournament. Do you see in near future seeing different countries and various athletes coming to India and participate in Olympics here in India? Do you see that happening pretty soon?
Not pretty soon. I mean, we're in 23, 36 is 13 years away. So, but definitely, why not? That's for any sport lover. I think in India, that would be the dream to host the world during an Olympics. I think if what Mrs. Ambani is doing, what whatever her association is doing, and the Indian government, they are hand in hand with this. They are in agreement with this. I'm sure they can work together and try and bid for an Olympics. I think 2036 might be a little too early, maybe 2040, but I definitely foresee if an Olympics, if things continue this way, I definitely see the way that Reliance is invested into sports and not just cricket. So I definitely see Olympics in the coming to India in the future.
Well, we are all hoping for that. And as Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, that it's a dream for India to host 2036 Olympics and also the Youth Olympics. Let's all hope for that. And it's a big, big decision. It's a big day as cricket has been included in Olympics. It's the result of the hard work that a lot of people have put in, especially Nita Ambani and their foundation, who have been constantly working on grassroots levels. Thank you so much, Srini, for sharing all the details with us, and all the answers to the questions that have been put up across various platforms, what will happen and what this decision will do to India. And thank you so much, Sahil and Chetan, for joining with me. It was great talking to you and knowing your thoughts on this whole decision. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining with us, and let's cheer up for India. Thank you.
फास्टेस्ट क्रिकेट स्कोर अपडेट्स या सबसे डिटेल्ड स्टैट्स,
क्रिकेट के अंदर बाहर की खबरें
या हेल्दी डिबेट्स,
सबसे एक्यूरेट एनालिसिस
या फैंस का क्रेज, सबके लिए एक ही प्लेटफॉर्म, क्योंकि क्रिकेट मतलब